So day 6 is another decision day if you are mixing and matching your gargoyle patterns, because it's time to choose which feet to put on your gargoyle. Now, don't feel like you've got to go with them as matching pairs. On mine, I've actually gone for the new ones with knuckles on this last one that I'm making, but I'm actually going to go back to the original Phillipe the Gargoyle ones for my feet. So I'm going to combine the knuckles with the split two foot. Now, if you want to go all new, then it's actually almost like a lion's foot that I've given you as a completely different shape for this new one. So you've got a much bigger, more stuffed foot. But these are your 4 options, really. So this is the original one on Phillipe the Gargoyle. That's actually the one that I'm going to demonstrate in this video here, because actually I think it's got the most details covered. You've got some slip stitches where it does actually turn forwards for a foot as well. So I'll show that one on there. Then this one, I guess, is more hand-like. You're splitting 3 times and then you're adding on that thumb in the same way. So that would be on Gargoyle 2 from the PDF pattern. And then the most simple would be the basic foot shape. That's coming from Gargoyle 3 of the PDF pattern. Or those brand new ones, I've gone for quite a big foot on this. I really wanted to capture that lion foot because I felt like I'd seen lion-shaped feet on an awful lot of gargoyles and grotesques as I've been looking more into those kind of forms recently. So I wanted some really big ones to go in extra. But let's go through the techniques so you can see them all. So what I've got here is I've got myself to round 28, which is where you'll have got both your legs to yesterday. And then what I'm going to do is actually be increasing. And I'm just going to rejoin in a new ball of yarn because this is my second one. So then I'm going to create what is effectively a little ankle for the gargoyle. So I'm just going to pull my rejoined ends out of the way for you so it's nice and easy for you to see. So I'm going to pull those back through so they're out of my way. And then what we're going to do is slip 3 stitches. So rather than double crocheting, you're going to go in, yarn over and come right the way through. So slip 3. So that's 1, 2, 3. Then double crochet 6, which will take you around the back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then you're going to slip the last 3. And this means that our foot's very much going to be on one side. So our foot is, because it's an ankle going forward, it will actually turn the foot forwards in one direction. Now, as a tip, for those of you, again, if we're going to talk perfectionists, and the fact that I showed you how to identify which way these naturally folded, rather than doing this way on your second one, you'd need to reverse it. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm just gonna, the second row of these slip stitches, the second round, should I say, of these slip stitches is exactly the same as the first. So you're going to slip, and it's very tight to then work these slip stitches. That's normal. Don't think that you're doing something wrong. Just take your time. 1, they are very tight, intentionally so. This is what turns the ankle. So 2, get your hook in that third one, 3, and then DC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then slip 3 again at the end. 1, 2, it's normal to feel like you're fighting them, so don't worry. You can just double crochet them if you're not worried about this and you find this a bit of a fuss. But what it does is creates an extra turn on that foot so it sits forward a bit more flat. Right, so what I've done there is I've done slip 3, DC 6, slip 3 twice. Then I carry on with my foot like this. If you are a person that very much enjoyed learning that these naturally have bumps where that'll be the outside effectively of the elbow and then the other way, what you might want to do is invert the way that you do those slips on your second leg. So on your first leg, you can do them like that. So do them slip 3, DC6, slip 3. And on your second one, do DC3, slip 6, DC3, and what you'll then do is you'll get them going the other way around so they both match. So both legs will naturally fold in the same direction. If that doesn't mean anything to you, don't worry about it too much at all. It's an absolute little tip really for the people that are maybe on their second, third, fourth, fifth gargoyle and really want to make sure that they are doing something different with this one. So if you want to, you can invert this shaping here so you get the knees to fold in the same way on both legs. If you're going for the new ones, you don't actually have this ankle put in, so it doesn't make any difference to you at all. You don't need to worry about it. You sew these forwards. This is only for the other 3 to put that ankle shaping in. So once you've got it in, you're then going to be working 3 rounds. And again, I'm going to be nice and slow as I come off those slip stitches. If you find them very hard to pick up from, you can just work the fronts of them if that's going to be easier. But once you've done this 1 round of DCs coming off them, then they'll loosen off when you're back to normal. So I've completed my 3 rounds, and what I'm now going to do is it says DC3 and then it says incomplete rounds in brackets. But I just want to talk you through why you've got an incomplete round here. This is back to that splitting thing that we discussed a lot when we did the hands. So what you want to do is make sure that you've got a straight line here. And when you split your 2 toes, whether you're doing 2, whether you're doing 3, you want to make sure that they are running flat alongside each other. So it will specify in this original Phillipe the Gargoyle pattern to DC3 and then split 6. But actually, it will depend really on your tension, how you found those slip stitches going. What I would recommend really is fold it flat and do whatever is going to break them most evenly for you. Now, on the one that I've got here, I would actually say that it would be to DC 1 and 2 as an incomplete round, and then count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 backwards, like that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 backwards, like that. Then I've got my 6 stitches ready to go on, and then crochet my toes in like this. So that really is just an extra tip that when we are talking about these incomplete rounds, it's really just to get you in the middle. And that's a prime example there is when, if I'm very specific, you'd be going with it regardless of what might work for yours. But what you want to make sure is that your little ankle that you've just put in is sitting flat to the knee joint there, and then just split down the middle of both rounds to break them into 2 even 6s, and then you'll get the nicest, flattest finish with no twists in it. And you can see immediately what those slip stitches have done is they've created a little ankle that means that the foot will then sit forwards a bit better. It's better for arranging it really when you are putting it on the shelf, that those feet will sit flat. Right, as we finish that now, I'm going to come back to that one afterwards. It's time really for some stuffing and some sewing up, and that's because tomorrow the fun really begins, because we're going to actually start to make decisions about all the features that go onto your gargoyle's head. So what you need to do is actually stuff and sew up today if you do have the time. That means that as we make the parts tomorrow, you'll actually be able to put them in place and start to have some real fun with them and see the shapes come together. So when you're stuffing, don't be tempted to roll the stuffing up into small balls to put it in. You want to keep it in as big a chunk as you can, like that, as you put it in. Now, you might have decided to stuff your head on day 1, at the end of day 1 before you went on to day 2. If you've done so, then all I would recommend at this stage is just make sure that you have got plenty of stuffing running through your central neck. So what you want to make sure is that you have got stuffing running in a continuous piece between the head and the body, because this is what helps support your head. If you've got a break of that stuffing, so you've got a stuffed head and you've got a stuffed body, then you'll find that you've got a very floppy head on your gargoyle. So pull the stuffing in like that, and you see how with that one piece that's running through, I've actually got it running through both parts like that. Now I need to pull a little bit more up into my head. So I'm just going to use the end of my crochet hook to tease some up. And you can obviously do that retrospectively. So if you've already made a gargoyle, maybe you made it when it was originally released, and you found that yours has a very floppy head, you can always strengthen that by running a piece of stuffing right up the middle between the body and the head like that. You can see how much I manipulate that stuffing once it's in. Don't just pop it in and think that the job's done. You do need to make sure that you've got it nice and evenly spread like that throughout both. Whoa, I've lost my centralizer there. Lucky that I know where that is. So it's going to be going in the middle there. That's my, managed to drop my centralizer out of my body there. It's obviously being a bit too rough putting that stuffing in. So once you've got your stuffing in your body and head like that, if you did use a centralizer, it will obviously mark the centre of your tummy. But if you haven't used a centralizer, if you manipulate that stuffing, you'll see where that big bulge forms the front of the tummy. That'll become the centre of your gargoyle as you sew up. So all you need to do at the end is you just gather these stitches at the bottom of your body by doing a running stitch through them like that. And then fasten off that end. Now, when it comes to your arms, what you need to do is gather and sew your ends in. So if you've got an end, do it exactly the same as I've just done. If you wanted to give them even more shape, you could squeeze a little bit of extra stuffing into the end of there if you wanted to. Between any toes and fingers, I'd usually use the central end just to do a couple of wraps like that, which will make sure that the stuffing's really neatly held inside. Like that. So then to sew your arms in place, what you need to do, if you have gone for these knuckled ones, obviously your knuckles will be on the outside. So stuff the top of the arm as well like that, and then sew it flat. So sew through both sides of it like that. Then position that in. Right in, so you've got your centre of your body, position it right in to that neck that we crocheted between our head and our body, and you're going to sew, over sew, right between one side like that, and I would always go all the way down one side, flip that upwards, and then sew along the other side as well, so it's really firmly attached. Especially, I mean, I have a suspicion that most of these are being made very much for you to form part of Halloween displays, but some of them I'm sure will make their way into little hands. So just make sure that they're really securely sewn up so that the limbs won't ever come loose, especially if they do get dangled around by them. So I always finish off an end of yarn when I have sewn it in by going in and around a stitch like that a couple of times, so it's really firmly attached. Then your second one, same thing again. If you didn't put stuffing in the bottom as you went along, at this stage, before you sew it up, you can always squeeze a little bit of stuffing in between the digits like that, so in between your two fingers. Push it basically down that gap between the two. And whenever I'm doing the second of one, I always refer back to the other. So when you're making that judgment call, just feel the other one and make sure that you get them balanced between the two. So I need a little bit more in my hand there. And then in the top. And then just line it up nice and symmetrically with your one on the other side. Right, then when it comes to legs, the important thing with the legs is your gargoyle is likely to be someone that's going to sit on a shelf that you will enjoy positioning. So we want to make sure that the legs sit nice and flat. And the main thing about that then is don't put too much stuffing into this thigh here, otherwise it won't sit as flat. So if you've gone for one of the leg designs that has this slip stitch ankle, then just make sure that you've got those both at the front so that that foot will sit up and naturally fold like that. Now I've got no stuffing in this one at all at the moment, so I'm going to put the stuffing, push it in between the two toes, down the middle like that. So I've got a bit of stuffing in there. And then I'm actually going to stuff these two toes as well, so I get a nice 3D shape in those. Put stuffing into the end of there. Again, move it around. So you ideally want there to be no stuffing in that ankle piece, will make it look better, but then a little bit in the actual bottom of the foot like that. Okay, I'm going to stuff the other side. Now, one thing I haven't actually mentioned, which I should, is if you are using safety eyes and you want to attach your safety eyes right into your head, then you would have needed to put those in before you've actually closed the bottom. But that all said, all the designs that we're doing actually have almost layered eyes that go on the top. So you can actually attach your safety eye into this disc before we put it in place, and you could actually attach your safety eye into this eyeball before you sew it in place. So for once, actually, there's no need to panic about getting your safety eyes in at the stage before you close the bottom, because you'll be able to work them on top. And I will mention that when it comes to eye day, so that you can see that a little bit more, what your options would be with safety eyes, because it's not too late to decide to use safety eyes. So all I'm saying about the top of this thigh here is don't put too much in, because he's going to be sitting down on the thigh. So much as you might want to go in for bulging biceps, don't put too much in the thigh. You want it to be flat-ish so he can sit down and balance on top of it. And then sew the top closed. Now, this is a thing that can be quite confusing. When you sew the top of this leg closed, what you want to make sure is that this ankle here lines up with that knee joint that also then lines up in the same line as the top. So do you see how my end is actually here? You don't want to be folding it flat and sewing it closed like that. You actually want to be conscious of that line, and then that line flat like that. And it really will be tension that will affect this more than anything, but it can all get corrected so you get nice straight legs by sewing that top line flat like that before you then sew it into place. So once you've got it closed, what we want to make sure, again, make your ankle face the front so that you know your ankle's on the front of your gargoyle. Draw a line down the centre of this body. Obviously, a lot of you will probably have that stitch marker in the centre anyway, so that'll really help you. So draw that line down, bring it down to the bottom, and then what we want these to do is actually splay out at an angle when they sit forwards. So they've actually got quite wide leg tops compared to the underneath of the body, but that is correct. What you want to be doing is imagine that line coming down the centre of the body here into the bottom circle, and as per normal when we're sewing up Ed's animals, divide it into thirds. So you've got a line here, there'd be a line here, and there'd be a line here. And that's the line to actually sew these legs on. And that means that when they are sitting up, they'll support their own body weight, they'll support any horns or everything else that you've got on the top, and they'll just balance really nicely on those tummies. So over sew again, all the way down one side. And then flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. So that then is the main body of our gargoyle actually assembled, ready for the proper fun to commence tomorrow, really. So from tomorrow, we're going to be doing lots more smaller parts, and there'll be lots more choices to make every day as you mix and match all the pieces together to create your gargoyle. So if you have got a chance, go ahead, do your stuffing and sewing up like that, because that means that when we start to do the parts tomorrow, you'll really be able to put them in place before you make the next decision as we go through the final few days.